I've been watching these Errol Morris Miller High Life documentaries. They make a man think, if he can do so much at such a young age, what have I done with my year? Hell, it's almost February. It makes a man ask himself, how can I become my best self? How can I become my best self? How can I become my best self?
How can you become your best self? Discover what's truly possible for you. It's possible at New College of Florida, a place for individuality, for curiosity, a place that's home to free thinkers, risk takers, trailblazers, originals like you who love to learn. Experience the exceptional and affordable education that prepares you for your future at New College of Florida. Internationally known professors who empower you through hands-on research, mentorships, and internships.
Okay, stop right there. That's fine. I'm convinced. This is the most convincing man in the world. I would buy anything from him. You would. He could carve the tusk off of a rhinoceros and then sell it back to that same rhino at a steep profit. That's how good he is. Psych, I'm just kidding. He seems fine. And all of his friends seem to be fine as well. A lot of them seem to be, I think it's safe to say, coded as queer. The school is telling us what it is. It is a modern, inclusive learning space. And everyone seems to be having a blast. Except, of course, for this guy. But other than that, everything seems to be going totally normal style down at the new college. Everything is so wildly mundane that Twitter user Nate Cockman wrote a whole article about the Daily Beast publishing an article that said basically nothing was going on there. Naturally, I had to investigate. Of course, all kinds of philosophical questions are being raised here about what it means to write an article about nothing. What does it mean to write an article about another article about nothing? What does it mean to make a video about all of it? Frankly, I don't think we're going to get any of those answers. But who is Nate Cockman? Well, we discussed in the previous video what the corporate structure of the New York Post looks like. It's a siphonophore. A siphonophore is a colony of small microorganisms that make up a much larger macroorganism. Each organism within the siphonophore is called a zooid. Nate Cockman is a zooid in the siphonophore founded by this ancient sea creature, the National Review, a favorite among racists who live in high-rises. And he writes, an ominous Daily Beast headline from this morning reads, "They were loving college, then Ron DeSantis got involved. Here are the opening 2 paragraphs. When Governor Ron DeSantis and his war on woke education took aim at the New College of Florida on Friday, Sam Scharf was surfing with her friends an hour down the coast. Which is to say the 22-year-old sophomore was blissfully unaware that the small public liberal arts school she attended was the latest target in what could be the governor's hate-fueled march to a Republican presidential nomination." We're 3 paragraphs in, and Cockman has written 1 of them. What do we think about this Sam Scharf character? Is there anything out of the ordinary about her? Anything that we might want to notice? Anything that is going to be relevant later on? Anything at all, do we think? No? Okay. I guess there is nothing to see here. It's a huge NBD. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, you don't need to do that. Nobody needs a score written into the story. The rest of the story, unfortunately, is far less exciting than the attention-grabbing headline and opening salvo. The latest target in DeSantis' hate-fueled march to the Republican presidential nomination was the appointment of 6 new conservative board members at the left-wing Sarasota College, including the prominent anti-critical race theory activist Chris Rufo, pending confirmation by the Florida State Senate. As the Daily Beast reports, that made at least 2 students very upset. One, Sam Scharf, relayed to the outlet, "I got really sad and then just laid down." Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Adding 6 super conservative activists to this small liberal arts school's board, snooze fest, right? If I was here looking for some kind of tension or conflict of some kind that might make for interesting journalism, I have come to the wrong place. Unfortunately. What are we doing here, Cockman? And who's this cool-ass Chris Rufo cat? Well, if you believe the National Catholic Register, which I do, Christopher Rufo is a conservative activist who introduced American parents to critical race theory. What is critical race theory, CRT? It is a academic framework used at high levels of postgraduate studies through which you can study the ways that laws and institutions interact with society along racial, ethnic, and sociological lines. It is not a set of values. It is not a system of beliefs. It is something that can be used to interrogate the real world and what we believe about it, but it is a value-neutral way of studying society. Truffaut is a conservative activist who introduced American parents to critical race theory, convinced then-President Donald Trump to bar CRT from federal diversity trainings, and flew to Florida for the recent signing of Governor Ron DeSantis' Stop Woke Act, is now one of the most consequential figures in U.S. politics, God help us, even though he is just a little boy. So he's not just any connoisseur of elementary schools with racist names. He is like the original one of those. Like, he founded the magazine, like, Cat Fancy, but for this, that they all use to write articles for each other about who's your favorite slave owner and why school lunches are too affordable. Ron DeSantis' idiotically named Stop Woke Act, also called the Freedom from Indoctrination Bill, is a legislative attempt to stop CRT, or at least the deliberate misunderstanding of what CRT is, in its tracks in academia. The law prohibits teaching that, for instance, members of one race, color, national origin, or sex are morally superior to members of another race, color, his or her race, color, national origin, or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or consciously or unconsciously. A person's moral character or status as either privileged or necessarily determined by his or her race, color, national origin. This is the governor says I'm not racist bill. Members of one race, color, national origin, or sex cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to race, national... What the fuck? It's just nonsense. Okay. You may not teach that a person, by virtue of his or her race, color, national origin, or sex, bears responsibility for, or should be discriminated against, or receive adverse treatment because of actions committed in the past by other members of the same race, color, national origin, or sex. This is the Confederate flag clause. But skid mark sound effect. We got a plot twist here. The federal judge has blocked the law on First Amendment grounds. So the dipshit responsible for weaponizing a deliberate misunderstanding of what CRT is, to the point that Governor Ron DeStupid, that's what we're calling him now, passes a whole-ass law about it that is too stupid and broad to be enforced without trampling on the civil rights of student and faculty. And so we're putting that moron in charge of this sleepy little liberal arts college. Great. And that's it. No, really. The they in They Were Loving College is two students. And then Ron DeSantis came along and stole Christmas, tortured puppies, and abolished ice cream and children's laughter. Don't threaten me with a good time. Wow. Tone of the opener turns out to be describing the fact that one student disagreed with how DeSantis and his allies are framing it, and another felt sad. That second point was reiterated by the same student later on in the piece. It made me really sad, Sharp said. But then I began contemplating how, we as a student body reject this and try and do our best to fight back and defend our space. Yeah, okay, you go, girl. Grim stuff, says Cockman. But then again, this is Ron DeSantis' Florida. Okay, so that's it, huh? Nothing else you want to tell us? Just a couple of sleepy sophomores who are mildly inconvenienced by a fascist takeover of the board of their liberal arts school. Snooze fest. And there's Sam Scharf again. And I just cannot shake the feeling that there is something intriguing about her that we are not being told. We're missing something. There is something about her, and I just can't place my finger on it. Oh, there's a link to the original article. When Governor Ron DeSantis and his war on woke education took aim at we've already read this before, blah, 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 which is to say the 22-year-olds, yada, 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 hate-fueled march right on. That day, Ron DeSantis announced the appointment of 6 new board members at the small Sarasota college, many of whom were ultra-conservative political players and academics. Scharf, a trans woman, a trans woman, said that she returned to shore and her phone to find it had blown up with messages from people telling her the news. Let's be honest with ourselves. Do we think that Nate Cockman has ever in his entire life, public or private, passed up an opportunity to point out a trans person? I sincerely doubt it. And if you believe that he has, I have a fridge to sell you. Why now? Why now? Why now? Why now? Among the appointees on Friday were Charles R. Kessler, a professor and editor for a publication of the far-right Claremont Institute, Mark Bauerlein, a Trump-allied Emory University professor, the Catholic heart of England, give me a break. There's more Catholics in Vietnam than in the United Kingdom, and they're atheists. And Matthew Spalding, a professor at conservative Christian University, Hillsdale College in Michigan. I don't think this is the right Matthew Spalding, but it could be. It is our hope that New College of Florida will become Florida's classical college, more along the lines of a Hillsdale of the South. What do we know about this Hillsdale place? Hillsdale College is a private conservative Christian liberal arts college in Hillsdale, Michigan. It was founded in 1844 by abolitionists known as the only Baptists that anyone likes. New College of Florida, on the other hand, is a public liberal arts college. Do we see the problem? But what immediately caught Scharf's eyes were tweets by incoming board member Christopher Rufo, who only days before had declared that Governor DeSantis is going to lay siege to university diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. In addition to being perhaps the key figure behind the bogus right-wing backlash to mostly non-existent use of critical race theory in schools, Rufo has also been an avid opponent of what he calls radical gender theory in education. And among other appeals that form part of his admittedly ruthless political playbook, he has issued callouts on Twitter for documents, PDFs, audio video, VHS, cassette tapes, CDs, laser discs, Morse code messages, echoes, broadcasts of old TV from the 50s that's beaming through space right now. All that kind of stuff related to gender, grooming, and trans ideology in school. Oh, God. This shit. So if you've been with us from the beginning, and don't worry, nobody has, you have seen how much the right wing in Florida salivates over drag queens. And I don't know what it is that gets them going so hard when drag queens enter the chat, but they get sent off flying like tops. This grooming nonsense is based on the absurd premise that any homonormativity is by its very nature sexual. So two dudes kissing on the sidewalk is sexual, whereas a man and a woman kissing on that same sidewalk is not going to be sexual. So any public homonormativity, to the extent that we are going to have children in public, is necessarily sexualizing those children in public. That is the argument. It's gibberish. Surf and sophomore Sam Scharf feels a little bit nervous about this incoming board. Why? Chris Rufo. Let's check out his YouTube. Oh, no. Ooh. All right. Oh, God. No, they're not. Okay, dude. Do we even want to think about what someone like that's going to do with the school's police force? Do we think that that's what's going to actually happen? No. Is it fun to clown on these whack-ass SROs? Yeah. We could sit here and argue all day about the advisability of handing over an institution that fields the gendarmerie to phalangists, but at this point, it's purely academic. Several students interviewed by the Daily Beast who see New College as a safe space for learning are vowing to protect it, amid fears that as the small college becomes a big target for a conservative culture war, it will attract racist, sexist, and anti-LGBTQ attacks, and even a potential for violence. That is not a fear that I share, unfortunately. I wish that it was. I don't think that we're going to see crazies besieging the school at any point. For the school to attract that kind of attention, this sort of very public attempt to deliberalize it would have to be met with enough institutional resistance to slow it down significantly, or if not stop it, and that's not going to happen. This is a done deal. So I'm not so much worried about the crazies outside the walls, but the crazies inside the walls. Imagine the kind of place that these people want to make, and then imagine the kind of people that want to be there. I don't think it's the type of crowd that Sam Scharf is going to be running with. It's not as though we don't have enough Christian conservative colleges in this state for these nitwits. We've got plenty. This is part of a larger project, not just to deliberalize higher education in Florida, but to desecularize it as well. And it's being led by theocratic transphobes. You know, for all this talk of freeing people from indoctrination, we should start, first and foremost, with making sure that the students who already attend that school don't get indoctrinated. Sobel, who helped start a Twitter account for students who want to push back against the government aims, told the Daily Beast. So basically what Sobel is saying is you can't indoctrinate a motherfucker that's already been indoctrinated, lest you be indoctrinated in return. Because if you are indoctrinated and you're trying to indoctrinate the indoctrinated, then all that indoctrination is just going to get indoctrinated right out of it. I'm actually not sure what he means by that, but it's got a very cool jujitsu feel to it. For Sharf, the hero of our story, it is also a place where she feels a trans student can be accepted as they are, and that a loving atmosphere is particularly important to defend. For a lot of trans students, this is the only place they have where they can be themselves and be celebrated, she said. And they want to take that away from us, and we can't allow that. Yes, this is a big deal. All right? This was worth spilling ink over. If only for Sam Sharf, our hero of the story. Because she, one of, 600 students on campus, is a trans woman who has found a place where she feels accepted. I don't know shit about Sharf, so I'm not going to paint a picture fictitiously about some life of suffering that I've made up, that I know nothing about, that's inaccurate. I'm not going to do that. For all I know, she and her identity were nurtured and affirmed by the people that loved her from the very beginning. That would be awesome. That's what everyone deserves. Let's assume that's the case, and that her university experience is just an extension of that charmed life, okay? The very fact that she feels accepted and loved and comfortable in this place means that other trans students can feel the same way there as well. Do we think that that level of acceptance will increase or decrease under the new administration? So I'd like to read the end of Nate's article again. Nate Cockman. That's it. No, really. The they in They Were Loving College is just 2 students. No, it's not just 2 students, asshole. It's an entire community of students who enjoy a tolerant academic environment and all the knock-on benefits that come with that. You can't just dismiss the 2 people who you didn't even interview, by the way. Someone else did the journalism here. You can't just dismiss them, particularly when one of them belongs to precisely a class of people whose existence the bigots you're running interference for repudiates. You can't just SFW trans people. So fucking what? You don't get to erase these people, Nate Cockman. No matter how bad you want to party on Chris Rufo's sex barge. So, I've been wrecking my brain trying to figure out why did Nate Cockman write this article to begin with. He didn't have to. He had no reason to single out a Daily Beast article to his readership that they wouldn't have seen otherwise. There's no need to do that. There's no uproar over the original article that he had to spin a counter-narrative for. I don't think the theocratic lunatics in the story feel like they really need kudos from this guy, honestly. I don't think they give a shit. So who is this for? So if you ask me, this all started when Nate Cockman hate-read the original Daily Beast piece, and he is such a true believer in this Christianization of public higher education project that he looks upon New College as virgin territory to be conquered and colonized by white Christians. And this Daily Beast article posed a problem by putting, natives into the picture. People who stand in the way. People who might pose some resistance to this project. And that is unacceptable if you're going to mythologize. So in order for this guy to continue to be able to believe this himself, he has to take the Indians out of Thanksgiving, as it were. It is the Palestine was a land without a people lie that Zionists tell themselves. It's the virgin territory myth. The idea that your conquests are both bloodless and virtuous, when that is never the case. On a personal note, I have made no progress in the MMA training. Things are stalled on that front. If I'm ever going to knock out Matt Gaetz, though, I am going to have to get it together. Really need to start asking myself, how can I become my best self? How can I become my best self? How can I become my best self? How can
CBS! He's one tough Marine. She's a liberal-minded reporter and mother of 3. They're not sure whether to make love or war.
Wasn't too bad.